Now we're going to talk about dilations on the coordinate grid and really focus in on what happens when we dilate a shape and looking at their coordinates. So let's look at this first grapple activity we did in class. We're going to dilate this triangle using 0, 0 as the center and a scale factor of 3. So if I hit try it, I see my triangle got smaller. That's because the scale factor is a third, right? And remember, if it's bigger than 1, it'll get bigger. Less than 1, it'll get smaller. Let's look at the coordinates. So A was at -3, -3. A prime is at -1, -1. So A prime is -1, -1. What's happening to those coordinates? I want you to think about that. Now let's look at B. B was at 12, 3. B prime is at 4, 1. 4, 1. Yup. And then C was at 9, 12. Now C is at 3, 4. What is happening to our coordinates here? 3, 4. So that is correct. What is happening to our coordinates? They're all getting multiplied by a third. -3 times a third, that is 1. And since it's negative, -1. -3 times a third is also -1. 12 times a third is 4. 3 times a third is 1. We're just multiplying the x and y by the scale factor. That's all that's happening. So that's what's happening there. We're multiplying the x and y by 1/3. Oops, I don't want to close that out. But here's our notes. So if we're dilating on the coordinate grid and using the origin as the center, we just multiply the x and y coordinates by the same scale factor. We just call it k, right? For that question, it was 1/3. We could multiply by 3. We could multiply by 4, by 1/5. Whatever the scale factor is, that's what we're multiplying the x and y by. So looking at this example, right, remember, if our scale factor is more than 1, it gets bigger. Less than 1, it gets smaller. Negative is going to flip it, but don't worry about that right now. Let's look at a teacher example here. So figure A is dilated using point C as the center. Enter the scale factor. Well, let's look at the coordinates here. If I look at this point, it's left 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Left 2, up 4. So that's the coordinates of that point. Let's figure out the coordinates of this point. It's left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So left 6. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Up 12. So what am I multiplying my coordinates by to get -2, 4 to -6, 12? Well, I must be multiplying by 3 because 4 times 3 is 12. -2 times 3 is also -6. So we're multiplying these by 3 here. -2 times 3 is -6. 4 times 3 is 12. So the scale factor must be 3. Yep, so I use those coordinates to help me. So there's some partner practice problems we did in class. So if we dilate by -2, right, we would just make these points times -2. 1 times -2 is -2. 3 times -2 is -6. And then we would just keep going until we got all of these correct. So B prime, that'd be -8, -4. And then C prime is -4, 0. One little thing, I gotta check my coding because that's wrong. So that should be -2, -6. I just gotta go back and change that. All right. So try that cool down looking at what are the coordinates going to be if we multiply by a scale factor of 2. And drag those points where it's going to go if we're multiplying by a scale factor of 2.